Today we have a speaker, Sherry Cole. I'm sorry. Sherry Cole is with the Grand Valley Peace and Justice, and she has some very special words for us today.
I don't usually cry before I speak. I've sat and cried here most of your service. So get out your Sharpies and mark off why do we shelter, because you already know why. And we'll just go ahead and instead we'll talk about what pirates search for. I think they search for the same things we do. We just make it look different because they too are a bit outcast. Why do we shelter? I had to chuckle when I got the program by email because we call our sheltering program now We Shelter. It's one word. And so when I saw it in the program, why do we shelter? I thought, oh, it's supposed to say, why do we shelter? And I thought, I never thought to clarify that for anybody, but it's perfect. It's just perfect because it asks two different questions. Why do this program that's new? Peace and Justice for many years, 9 consecutive years, we coordinated the Emergency Shelter Overflow Program, where we took single men from Homeward Bound who would be put out because they were the first ones when the shelter was full who had to leave. But during that time, we were always feeling like we weren't getting all the people we needed to help, that we were just reaching out to the sheltered people. And there were a lot of people still on our streets who were out night after night during that time. So this past fall, what we did was reconsider. We reconsidered who we shelter. And so now we're not just taking people who might come from Homeward Bound. We're taking people who I have screened who actually were sleeping on a bus stop bench. I've taken a woman who was sleeping behind your building, who was by herself. I have a family with an 18-month-old. They were sleeping in their vehicle. Not everybody can shelter with 100 other people. You're looking at one of them. When I went to college, my first year, we were required to sleep in the dorm. We could not sleep off campus. And I had such sleep deprivation that first year, I just didn't know how I was going to make it through. And it was amazing that I did as well as I did that first year in school, because sometimes I sat in class and I was just like, I cannot hear what you're saying, so I better read this really well. So why do we shelter? I'm going to give you some statistics. Last January, that last week of January, they always choose one night, usually a very cold night, to ask people who are unhoused, where they are, what they're doing. We do what's called a point in time count. That point in time of that one night in January, they do it across the country to determine how many people are unhoused. And we say unhoused at Peace and Justice. We've also said houseless, because I had a man come into me one day and say to me, I am not homeless. And I said, okay. He goes, I just don't have housing. And that really struck me that day. I really thought, I don't care if it's politically correct. He thinks I'm doing this, but he made a real point with me. He had lived here many years. He had worked on construction projects and built some of the buildings around here. And by golly, this was home. So we say unhoused. So when they do that point in time count every January, we get results. And ours from last January, out of about 1,200 people who were counted, which included people and transitional housing, permanent supportive housing who had come out of being unhoused, those at emergency shelters, rapid rehousing, youth, and the unsheltered. Out of about that 1,200 people, 451 of them were still living outside. 451. There were only 335 people in permanent supportive housing who had come out of being unhoused. That's why we shelter. That's one of the reasons. In the emergency shelters, whether it was Homeward Bound, the rescue mission, I don't usually use notes, but statistics and I are not that good, so I have to refer to these. 163 were in emergency shelter. So if we were to try and get those 451 sheltered, there's just no room. And some of those people who do not shelter, they're a little like me. They cannot sleep around that many people. They cannot shut down enough to rest. You hear everything going on. You wonder, you worry. So I have someone I know who's given me permission to tell this story, but she was unhoused for a while because of disagreements with family. There are so many reasons why people are not housed. And the family said, you know, either you do it this way or you can't stay here. And so she didn't stay there, and she tried staying at the shelter, and she had appointments during the day. And one night she could not get to the shelter in time to get a bed. So when she got there, they were full. So they gave her a blanket, which is their procedure. Depends, you know, if they're full, they try and really accommodate in a loving way. They gave her a blanket, they gave her a pillow, and she slept outside that night. So she took more of her medication than she should, because she knew that she would be scared all night long and be awake, and it knocked her out. And in the morning, she woke up and she had been molested in her sleep, and she smelled of cigarette smoke. She smelled of marijuana. And since that time, she cannot be around marijuana without having a little bit of anxiety. So when we don't have room, as the people at First Congregational Church say, when we don't have room at the inn, we make another inn. Just like Meg was saying, we're going to make a hotel. So I appreciate that you understand that. We shelter so people don't suffer. And we're all one. I mean, it's so obvious to me that you believe that. You know, we are the interdependent web of all existence. We are a part of that. That's not just our environment. We are part of that as well. So when someone is suffering, we will feel it. We will come upon it at times. That gentleman, if he's the one with the yellow blanket sleeping out in the bus stop, I've seen him many times. And our first men's shelter, we shelter single men, we call it, doesn't open until December 18th because it's been harder to find sites after COVID. A lot of churches have lost membership. Their budgets have changed. It's harder for them to bear the expenses of utilities and other things. But I've been trying to find him so that I can screen him so he can come in and be inside when we start. I have a couple who was sleeping in a bus stop as well, who are now in our family shelter, which opened November 20th. And we've never had one before. We shelter homeless families is what someone called it. I just call it we shelter families. So we have the opportunity in our lives to love in a way we may never have done before. Truly. And I usually have a quote that I can give that just kind of comes through, but I have to tell you, the one that came through today came through from your bathroom. I went into your bathroom this morning and I'm going around and wash my hands, and I see on the wall, love is hard. And I thought, day by day, sometimes that love is so hard, and I just stop and go, and it is so worth it. It is so worth it to move through that love when it's difficult, to move through the moment when a person says to me, when I screen them to come in, and they say, I don't know. I don't know if I can come inside and be around people. And I say, 16 people or less? And they kind of go, maybe. It's worth it for me to move through their fear with them, to love them enough so they feel confident enough to come inside. It is so worth it when you see them come inside. When they walk in and they look around and it's not noisy, there's space, but there's a toddler laughing, walking around, and they're like, oh, this doesn't feel like what a traditional shelter looks like, because they're full. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of sound. It's just the way it is. And so it's worth it. It's worth it to work through love when it's hard. One of the reasons that when I wrote down We Shelter for our program initially, capital WES and then shelter, was because I wanted us to be together, not the difference of us and them. We shelter. We are the shelter for those people when we open our hearts. When other people open their hearts to us, we feel that warmth, that sheltering feeling, that home feeling, that safe feeling. When other people open their hearts like you all did today in your service, oh my goodness, I was just crying over here and thought, I'm never going to be able to say a word. And then, of course, when it's time to talk, it's time to talk. So being one, having that sense of inherent worth and dignity of every person, that's also in our mission at Grand Valley Peace and Justice. We serve the vulnerable, the disenfranchised, those who are experiencing poverty, but they have a right to human dignity. So when a person says to me, can I think about it? Can I think about coming to the shelter? I know that there's something underneath it. Like the woman we knew who was molested, who slept outside. There's something underneath it. And that if we can be kind enough, warm enough, gracious enough, welcoming enough, those tiny steps can be taken across that threshold. That's the part I deal with a lot. Other organizations deal with this piece. How do I get the money to build housing and make it work? Because as you all know, right now, housing is not real accessible. It's not considered affordable. And building right now, contractors won't even really give you a quote that they will stick to, because they can't, because prices are going up and down on materials so quickly. So they can't guarantee you the price they think it could be, because by the time you're done, it's not. So let's talk about a place like, for example, this is so hard for me to believe. We only had 40 people in transitional housing last January because we couldn't find places that people could acquire to use as transitional housing while people are waiting. Because houses are being sold so rapidly now. And the cost has really zoomed up. Some is starting to come down, but it's still so much higher than it was that it's hard to obtain transitional housing for an organization. For them to put the money into it, even these transitional housing programs are from 5 different organizations. So, and they could only offer 40 slots. So when you think about that, that means that there are only 40 people able to be waiting to get into housing somewhere out of over 1,200 from last January. We can take 16 a night. And that's fire department, building inspection, regulations. We can have 16 a night, plus my volunteers. And when you look at 451 people unsheltered last January, we're just getting a little bit of it at a time, a little bit of it at a time. So it's really time for us to look at sheltering differently, to find ways where we can have multiple types of shelters and multiple places so that we can actually get people in there who can tolerate being inside again with smaller numbers of people where they feel like family. At this site, Robert McDonald does a beautiful job, and Robert is your volunteer coordinator again, coming in from Ohio. He and I have been on the phone a few times, and it's just been a pleasure. You know, he is going to make sure that everything you need to do this well, he's going to ask for. And I'm already asking for things too for you all. We already got mattresses from American Furniture Warehouse that we'll use. And although they're the thinner mattress, they gave us enough that we can double them up. So it'll be more comfortable. So we'll be looking for queen size sheets this year instead of twins, and many other things. But if we could just expand the places where we can shelter, if we could give people more opportunity to rest, to feel like they're in family groupings, you know, like walking in here today, you all felt like family. I sat up here just kind of being in a peaceful place, and I could hear you all so happy, chatting, welcoming. That's what our unhoused guests like to feel like too when they walk in a building. How are you? How was your day? Can I get you something right now before dinner? Did you want to settle in first? Hi, I'm so-and-so, and you are, and makes a world of difference. It's harder to do when you got 100 other people following in the door behind you. But when we can group together and honor each other, not feel that we're outcast, when we are searching for the treasure that is home, that is belonging, that is respect and dignity, and we find it, well, yo ho ho, really, really. That creates this sense of pleasure, grace, understanding, and kindness. And we can share that again, and they can share it again. I have had unhoused people come to our office and say to me, oh, I got your food bag and I can't eat this, this, or this, but I thought you'd want to give it to someone else. And can I have an extra Gatorade instead? Absolutely. So our perceptions of each other may be based on things that aren't real. Because I have a lot of people say to me, those unhoused people, they'll go anywhere and find anything. They'll steal, you know, to get by. And I thought, well, yeah, but so does the general population. They are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So don't point your finger. So I love that when people come in and say, I can't use this, even though they're hungry, they'll give it back so someone else can eat. I love that. And the other thing I love about it is that some of the people in our program right now have just stepped up. They went out with their food stamps and bought food to have at our family site. Even though we have people bringing in food, they went out, bought food, put it in the freezer, put it in the refrigerator so they could share it with each other so they could eat. so that everyone, even if someone wasn't on food stamps yet, because I have a woman who moved here from somewhere and she's getting all that taken care of, they want her to eat too. That's one thing I've noticed, is that when you're hungry, you don't usually want somebody else to be hungry either. So why do we shelter? Why not? Honestly, why let others suffer? Because every day that someone drives by and watches another person suffer, it adds to something in you. When a person who's had trauma speaks about their trauma over and over and over again, they feel the trauma again. When we drive by and do nothing, we are in limbo as a human being. When we drive by and decide how we're going to help and find a way to do it, you will have a different feeling. And it will touch the next person, the next person, the next person you talk to. So we shelter because we care, because we don't want people to die on the streets of this place we call home. And we have seen that. Last year, 21 people died outside in the cold. So this year, we shelter. Thank you for saying yes to being a we shelter for single men's side. You will find it a glorious experience. And I can hardly wait to see your hotel. Thanks for having me.
Wow. Our closing hymn today